Hello and welcome everyone to this plenary on nature-based solutions. It's so great to see you all in here today. My name is Hajir Koubi. I'm a former UN Youth Representative for the Netherlands, co-founder of Network 2100, but above all, delighted to be your moderator for this session today. Now, as you've already seen on the program, that's of course why you're here. This session today will be all about nature-based solutions, about how we can deploy them faster, how we can accelerate the implementation, but also talking about what are some of the opportunities and challenges that we face when it comes to sort of this interlinkage between renewables and nature-based solutions on the other hand. So a lot of interesting things that we'll get into today all together. Now, when you're talking about interesting topics, it does happen ever so often that a question pops into your mind, or maybe you hear something here on stage that really resonates with you, or you want to hear more about it. If that is the case, and you're here live with us in the room, please just raise your hand, and then we can get to as many questions of you guys as possible to our panelists later on. But if you're watching online via the live chat, you can also submit all your questions, ideas, comments, and then I promise to try my best to pose as many of those as possible to the amazing lineup of speakers that we have today. And after that swipe, when I'm talking about an amazing lineup of speakers, I am very delighted that we get to start off this session today by a keynote speaker who can tell us more about the urgency and importance of nature-based solutions, especially for the ongoing energy transition that we're in. So can I ask everyone in here for the biggest, the most enthusiastic round of applause, because we have with us the chief scientist at the Research Institute for Applied Knowledge Processing. Can we get a big round of applause for Estelle Herlin, everyone? Welcome, Estelle. I would say the lectern and the stage is all yours, and then I will be with you in a bit.
So thank you, Hajar, and hello to everybody. So I'm really happy to be here at the Vienna Energy and Climate Forum, and it's the first time that the nature-based solutions get the attention that they deserve in this forum. So and at the end we have a very clear message right at the beginning. So obviously we will need really all solutions available in the field of technology, and technology in all its variability, and we need nature. Yeah, so we must be happy really to have nature, because it is this such important element of any solution really to reach net zero. And to give you some figures, today nature absorbs about 25% of human-made emissions. This is about 15 billion tons of CO2. And if you have a look at what is the potential, there is really the potential to increase enormously this carbon sink by 10 billion more tons. So, which of course also is relevant for the field of not only climate mitigation, but also adaptation. So this is the really huge potential. At the same time, and I think the pictures, the film has shown it, I think there is the risk of further destroying nature and of further destroying this carbon sink, and we should really try to avoid this. Yeah, I think this is one of the most important tasks, really, to avoid that this important carbon sink is further destroyed, because this is what is happening today. What are we talking about? We are talking about conservation. It's about the rainforests. It's about really conservation, forests in particular. We are talking about reforestation. And we are, of course, also talking about soil improvement. And this brings us to another very important thematic area of this forum, which is agriculture. And I think all these different nature-based solutions, and there are many more, I think they all have lots of co-benefits, meaning they are enabling development, they are creating jobs, they are a positive contribution to food security, and of course we have biodiversity. So at the end, it's absolutely clear that working on nature-based solutions is obviously the right thing to do, so there is no doubt at all to do that. And what we have seen here in the forum are that we have many solutions in place. I think we have solutions in the field of soil improvement. We have solutions on the in the technology field, so how do we measure CO2? We have all that. But if we now have a look at reality, how does it look like? At the end, it's not in place. At the end, it's not in place at the scale that we need. And this is what is somehow, for me, the catastrophe. And so DG Müller is right to say we have the solutions, but at the end, we are not doing it. Yeah? And now let's come to the question, why don't we do it? What is so obviously right? And from my point of view, I think it again comes to financing. And this issue of financing has been mentioned in any session that I have joined since yesterday morning. And why is there this lack of financing? And then I think we have to go to the global north. This is very clear, and have to have a look at what is the perception of climate, what is the perception of sustainability in the global north. I'm not talking of each and any person, this is for clear, but the general perspective is that I think we are dealing with a national issue, and we are concentrating lot of parts of our resources really on working on our own territory, although we should be aware that only with international cooperation we will come to a common solution. So this is what we are facing. And what is really missing is that there is a link that has to be considered between climate and development. And at the end, the nature-based solutions are the best solutions really to combine development and climate, as I have stated before. There are, and I want to again come back to DG Müller, at the time when he was a minister in the BMZ, I think we launched a kind of multi-stakeholder initiative, the Development and Climate Alliance, that is in place also here in Austria, which is really aiming at motivating the private sector to finance projects in the global south that are contributing to climate and to development, and we are again coming back to nature-based solutions. But this is something that has to be scaled up. So what should we aim for? We should aim for really intelligent international cooperation between the public sector and the private sector. And Irene will talk about the example of Costa Rica, what they have done. What I would like to mention here is two companies that are not at the forum, but which I consider as real best practice examples. The number one is the Danish company Velux. They are financing huge restoration projects in the global south, in Vietnam, in Madagascar and Uganda, with the help of the WWF, who will be on the panel. And I think what they want to do is to absorb their historical emissions. So following the polluter pays principle, yeah, which many more actors should follow. And then we have Patagonia, another company in outdoor, and what are they saying? They are saying Earth is our only shareholder, and all the wealth of the company that is created goes into nature and, of course, in nature-based solutions. So, and now I could go on and talk about the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And he is also totally aware that I think we are facing urgencies, namely climate emergency, nature in crisis, and mounting inequality. And now, thinking about the nature-based solutions, what are they doing? I think they are tackling all three urgencies at the same time. So again, there are the actors that are aware of what has to be done. What we are missing is really the level playing field is missing the regulation to really get it done. So on the one hand, we can be lucky that we have these nature-based solutions, and I said that earlier on. Now, so what can we do? What should happen to really scale all this, what I have described up? So what I can contribute. So what I will take home from here, that I will try and continue to work on the perception of climate and sustainability, so really in the developed world, and there will be somebody from the media side also on the panel, and I think she has the same task, like changing the perception of what we are talking about. And once we have really understood and really fully understood that at the end we need a global we need global cooperation, we need international financing. Then I think the nature-based solutions will become a state-of-the-art automatically. So this is what I'm for sure, because it is something that is obviously right, and I have tried to describe that. So this is my input into the plenary session, into the panel, and I say thank you to you all.
Thank you so much, Estelle. Thank you. Can we indeed get a big round of applause for that? Thank you so much. I think that is an amazing layout to start a conversation with, but also thank you for taking the time and effort to already, mention some very tangible solutions, help us to understand what some of those bottlenecks are. You are incredible. I love your energy as well. If anybody, by the way, later on in the panel conversation has a question that they think would be only fitting for Estelle or would be very good for Estelle to answer, you can just ask it, because she will be here with us throughout the rest of the session, right? And then we can just get her a microphone. With that being said, I would say let's hop right into that conversation. And to do that, we have an amazing lineup of speakers, as was already teased a little bit by Estelle as well. Can I first off welcome to the stage the Managing Director of Mutter Erde and Officer for Sustainable and Green Producing at ORF Broadcasting Channel, Anita Mali. Welcome to you. Give her a big round of applause. Then I am also thrilled to welcome to the stage member of the Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition, Irene Cañas Diaz. Please give her also a big round of applause, and I hope I'm going well with the pronunciation. Then we have the Youth Coordinator LDC Group on Climate Change, Yared Adeba. Also a big round of applause for Yared. And last, but definitely not least, we have the Global Energy Lead at WWF, Dean Cooper. A big round of applause for him as well. And on that cue, I will also sit down. Now, hello and welcome everyone. Your microphones, you can find them scattered around. This one is yours, I think, Jared. Please do drink, keep yourselves hydrated. Maybe, Dean, if I can start right with you, because just listening to Estelle's story, she mentioned we have to, avoid the risk of further destroying nature, which I think is imperative. It is so crucial. And I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to the energy transition, very often everybody knows that we need to accelerate it and that the urgency is big. But then at the same time, we also know that there's also a growing sort of voicing of concern, I would say, with regards to what does that mean for biodiversity, for our natural world. And I was just, I was curious if you could come into that. How do you sort of look at that interplay between biodiversity and also, broadly our climate and the transition to renewables that we need to be making?
No, thanks. That's a good point, and you raised a lot of different issues there. I mean, I guess before I start, I should say thanks very much to UNIDO and the Austrian Government for including a session on nature-based solutions in this event. Also, this focus on youth, I think, is great. I mean, we have to remember that our decisions today are actually going to affect the generation of youth who will have to experience the results. And great to see you here as well. So, so thanks very much for that, the including of those two sides. I mean, I've been to the Vienna Energy Forum, as it was, over many years, and it's great to see the way things have developed. So we've now got the International Forum with Energy and Climate, and we have a session on nature. So I think the acknowledgement that the energy, climate and nature issues should be seen together. Now, unfortunately, I think together at the moment means that we're in crisis together. So there's an energy crisis, there's a climate crisis, and many people don't realize that there's a nature crisis also. One of the reports that I first read when I came to WWF talked about a 70% reduction in nature over the past 50 years. Now, if the world was a business, we'd have closed down many years ago. Nobody can accept a loss of 70% in a time frame like that. And it's a message we need to get out there. And the question is, how do we do that linked to the energy sector? What can we do as energy sector practitioners to try to make that difference? Yeah. Now, what we've done is to try to say that we want to get the scope for nature-based solutions. How can we have energy transition in a way that will be nature positive as we try to take that forwards?
Right.
That's the subject of a report that we've just released.
Yeah, which I think we have a picture of, if we can get it up there.
I think we're just going to have the front page of that.
Yeah, there it is.
Now, this is hopefully a tool for people in this audience to be able to use to say, how do we build a nature-positive energy transformation? We know it needs to be quick, but we don't want to have disruption to nature as a result.
Yeah.
Now, before I go any further, I mean, if I've got a couple of minutes to do this, I just wanted to ask people out there on the lights, do you have any doubts over the need for, or the preference for renewable energy over fossil fuels for the future?
Oh.
So if you've got a doubt, please just raise your hand.
Yeah, or maybe people can stand up. Are you afraid
Anybody?
about the increase of renewables that will harm nature? If you are so, then please stand.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, maybe can we get, sorry to interrupt, can we get a microphone to you, because then the people online can hear you as well?
Sorry, I just thought I'd give you some fodder or challenge it so that one
That's
person
good.
did it. I don't have a doubt about renewable energy, of course, as a future, but there are just other environmental concerns that are, of course, raised with renewable energy. For instance, the recycling of the equipment and so on. In developing countries, that's a big challenge.
Yep.
And that would be one. I think
There's a hand there as well. And then maybe we can take that and then let's continue. Maybe you can
thanks.
share some of the outcomes.
Just to add on to her point, it's one, of course, the recycling and the dumping, but also with more and more renewables coming into the market, that also means that we're going to be mining for a lot more of these minerals.
Yeah.
And currently there are no green mining laws, as much as we want to call them,
Yeah,
for
and
green industries.
and
so
social-
there's a lot of environmental degradation that's taking place.
Yeah, good point.
No, well, thanks, because I mean, just those two questions shows that it's not straightforward, and we are going to be asked these questions. So what we've tried to do with this report is to say, here's a toolkit for you so that you've got some answers to some of these questions. And there are a growing number of people who are confused. We don't really understand now, is renewable energy really the best way? What about the critical minerals? We've spoken here about some of the issues, all the mining that's going to be needed for the critical minerals for renewable energy. What about the hydropower blocking the rivers? We don't have free-flowing rivers if we have big dams there. Bioenergy, we've heard some people talk about bioenergy is the future, a lot of carbon emissions, the deforestation as a result of that, all nature-based impacts.
So what are some of these made? So you sort of looked at these interlinkages then, I assume. What are the outcomes of the report, if you could share them with us, Dean?
Well, this is the report itself is raising then some of the critical issues which need to be addressed.
Okay.
So it's in what it does is in two parts. It looks at the comparison between business as usual, if
Yeah.
we're talking about the fossil fuels continuing,
Okay.
and the implications of a rapid transition to
Right.
renewable energy.
Yeah.
Now, based on that, the first part is really an assessment of the comparison between the two. So we say, what is the situation? Is renewable energy, that rapid transition, really going to be the best way forward?
Yeah.
There are 30 metrics looking at air, water, land use, minerals we've spoken about, as well as the sort of social impact and biodiversity. So that's a bit of an assessment. It shows that out of those 30 metrics, 27 out of the 30 show that renewable energy is better.
Is what? Is better or is not?
Better, 2 to 16 times better. It's all done on a very sort of quantitative
Right.
aspect. In the report, as I say, so you can see the details. But of course, I can see already you're saying, hang on, 27 out of 30, what about the other 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had these questions. Now, if we talk about things like the impact on land and marine, the footprint that renewables makes is often greater than the footprint for fossil fuels, the direct footprint.
Right.
We have to think about the indirect
Right.
issues as well.
Yeah.
But then there's what about and the footprint really is bioenergy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a biomass,
Dean,
80% of biomass.
I think before
want
we
me to wrap
started
up,
this
I know?
session, now I get it. Before we started the session, Dean was like, "Do you think we have enough time?" And I was like, "I'm sure we do," but now I get it. You're bursting with information.
Okay,
but I also want to get to the others. So
Sure.
maybe if you can give your most
2 minutes.
succinct. No, really. I think
All right,
one final point.
Last point. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can read the report in detail.
Yeah.
So on those issues, footprint, water is biomass. Water is going to be bioenergy as well. So we need to get out of bioenergy something else,
Yeah.
or use high-yield crops,
Yeah.
or use waste.
Yeah.
The second part of the report is really saying what to do about this. It's a framework of mechanisms.
Okay, that is
talks-
actually a perfect bridge
Yeah.
because
It
and
took-
I will be back. I mean, we want to hear more, and maybe.
Sure.
If,
Okay, let me
yeah.
be quiet for now. but-
Okay, okay.
but please check the report if you
Yeah,
want some
yeah, for sure.
information
And
when
Mona,
others
I want you.
are
I'm going to
on it.
ask you later on about the second part, which was about what we can do about it. Right? I think that's definitely something. I won't keep people in suspense with a point that interesting. And thank you also because I do think that the fact that you have been working and your team and everyone at WWF at a report like that is so fundamentally important. I said a perfect bridge because I wanted to go to you, Irene, because you're from Costa Rica. It was already hinted at by Estelle, and I wanted to ask to you, Costa Rica is a country that is so well known for how it preserves biodiversity and how it really works to do that and focus on nature-based solutions. Could you maybe share with us some solutions or examples on the ground there that you think are very promising?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I am here as a member of CET. CET is the Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition. And very fast, I wanted just to explain that we are a technical body that we advise the General Secretary of the United Nations on energy transition. And so we are engineers all over the world. But today, I'm going to share the experience of Costa Rica in natural-based solutions. First, I wanted to say, well, my colleague, he was explain it a little bit, the importance for the energy transition of the nature-based solutions. In the case of Latin America and other countries, hydroelectric power is very important. And for the energy transition is a key for the energy transition because we can, on the reservoirs, we can storage water from the rainy season to dry season.
Yeah.
And it will give us stability with the variability of solar and wind. Well, now in the case of Costa Rica, I don't know if you are aware that we almost generate 100% of our electricity with renewable sources.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Almost 100%.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
insane.
The last 2 years was 98%.
Wow. Okay.
Just 2% with fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And we generate when we don't have enough wind or water, so we need, as a backup, the fossil fuels. So in my country, it's really important, the nature-based solutions, so we can have enough water to generate with our hydro plants.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the case of Costa Rica, in the 90s, we signed a law that created the National Forest Financing Fund in the 90s, so a long time ago. With this law, we have the financing to all the projects to protect our forest in Costa Rica. The other important thing is that right now we have 60% of our land with forest cover. So it's a lot.
So it's a
60%.
law that makes it mandatory for there to be funding budget for nature-based solutions.
Yes.
And I see
Yes.
some colorful payment cards. Can you explain what we're seeing?
I was going to mention that. You on your right, that graphic is how is the price of fossil fuels composition in Costa Rica, and the red part is taxes.
Okay.
So the tax on fossil fuels is very high in Costa Rica, and almost 4% of that income of taxes goes to finance the forest fund. So we were using the polluted pays principle since the 90s. So we have this fund to work on agroforestry and reforestation, forest management.
Right.
And on your left, that's
the thing I want to know.
private and public initiatives, banks, credit cards. They have issued sustainable credit cards. So the profit on those credit cards, a person goes to finance forest initiatives.
Immediately when you pay for things.
You can see they are very colorful.
Yeah. That's a reason in itself to have them. But so this is like people, they go to the store, you go to the supermarket, wherever, you purchase something, and then a percentage of what you're purchasing is, or the profit of the credit card company, so to say, that goes to financing these
Yes.
forestries and other things.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you also for bringing these examples. It's always very, and Estelle is giving you an applause over here, Irene. So I think that is a good thing. And thanks for bringing in, you make it tangible. I think that's so important with topics like this. Clearly, there's something that we have to do. Jared, if I go to you, Dean already pinpointed to you at the beginning, right? You're one of the people that, I mean, I know you back from when I was a youth representative for the Netherlands. Jared and I, we go way back. Well, 2019, but I think in our lifetimes that is a way long time ago. But I just wanted to ask you, you speak and you engage with so many fellow young people, especially also from the global south. They are also pushing for this. I mean, I've seen you at these conferences and we see young people that are that have initiatives that are fundamentally about preserving nature. They are nature-based solutions. What would you say is needed from the side of government and international organization to make more space for that?
Thank you, Hajar. Yeah, I'm here also as one of a youth leader in joining this panel from the least developed countries climate change group, which is one of the negotiating groups, which comprise 46 countries. I'm glad we are here in Vienna Energy and Climate Forum, working with UNIDO, and it's through Jeff funded project. So it's really important to make sure young people, especially from global south, their voice needs to be in this kind of panel, and also their voice needs to be incorporated. Before coming to your question, I would like to also add up with what Irina said on Costa Rica. Ethiopia, I'm also from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is also the next potential country with regards to nature-based solutions, as we are planted billions of trees with the leadership of our Prime Minister. So Ethiopia is going to be the next potential country for nature-based solutions as well as initiatives. So young people are also really leading a major role in that one, with the preparation of seedlings, tree plantations, and other issues. Yeah,
absolutely.
Coming to Hajar with you, answering the importance of young people, and also especially government and international organization. One, it's very critical governments to include young people in their national delegations, especially in this kinds of forum as well as in the COP negotiations. Right. If we are thinking of really sustainability, we need to invest in young people and really train them, empower them at the very young age, so that they can really think of solutions, because the process and the understanding of this issue, the complexity and other issue needs really an early stage of making sure, or empowerment for young people.
Is that common, Jared? Because I hear you mention as an example the negotiations at COP. I mean, COP is just around the corner. Dean mentioned at the start, well, it's important to have young people. They are the ones that are going to live that future for the longest that we're speaking about. And then we're not even talking about unborn generations yet, which I think is a whole different ballgame of inequity. But a climate conference like COP, young people being in the negotiations, is that a common thing?
Earlier, it wasn't a common thing. Now, the movement is getting very good progress, especially from global south. It wasn't a reality, especially so we miss the voice of young people, especially from global south, from Africa, least developed countries. Now there's an attention, and also there's a support for young people. So despite there are also several challenges, but it's very, very important. That's why we are seeing several solutions are coming up from the least developed countries, from young people from global south. So there are several startups now coming up with environment and energy related issues. So this is very, very important.
Promising,
and promising.
Yeah, but it's also
apart from that, maybe young people have also a role, driving in the local context as well. So connecting the global discussions to the local level is also one of the major role they are playing.
And you mentioned that because they are still on the ground usually. You mentioned that you see so many initiatives, whether it's volunteering or they have their own sort of community that they cater to, or I don't know, other projects, then they can sort of make that interlink between global and local. I like that. Thank you so much, Jared. And I can tell you, everyone, honestly, you said, well, it wasn't common at the start to have young people present at these climate fora and in negotiating, but now it is. You're not going to say it yourself because I know you're a modest, humble guy, but you have played a very, very crucial role in that because I know that you've been pushing for it with others as well, of course, but since the very start. So thanks for all the work there as well. Going to you, Anita. I wanted to ask you, it was hinted again, Estelle, you're sort of the glue for this conversation. I keep on coming back to you, but at some point I saw that there was sort of a shared goal between the two of you, which was, what is it that perception can do? Now, Anita, you work in media, so everything that you do in your work is about bringing people stories, getting the truth and the facts and the figures to them, but also making it accessible. When we talk about nature-based solution, and I think within this sector that's probably a common thing, sometimes it's very inaccessible from people on the outside when they hear this conversation and the jargon and the buzzwords. I'm just trying to see, what is the potentiality of bringing that perception and that message and making it more accessible, and what would you say that we as a global community should do more of to, get people to understand the urgency and the importance more here?
The point is that we are doing this Mother Earth initiative for like 10 years, and the situation 10 years ago was totally different. It was before Fridays for Future, it was before millions of people in Europe, all over the world, understood that we are really in a climate crisis, or as Antonio Guterres says, we are on the road to catastrophe. Yeah. So this is something that really changed in the last couple of years, that we understand that climate is an issue, not only on high-level panels, but as well my ma and my grandma and the people from the village where I come from. So this changed. Now the next step must be, and I think Dean told us we all will read your report, and probably it's as well something for our editors.
Cool, oh, nice.
And report on it. But the point is that now we must understand that climate change can be mitigated, but not on the cost of nature.
Yeah.
Because we have the sibling crisis, we have biodiversity loss, we have the sixth mass extinction, and this is like the next issue to be communicated. And as we work with our audience, our editors, we have 1,500 journalists working at the ORF.
Wow. Yeah.
And not all of them have as well this competence. As well in climate now, it starts to develop, but we must, we have a strong view on where does our audience stand. Yeah. And we have to consider what is the level of knowledge. Yeah. Where can we pick them up? Yeah. So these, I think, are the next challenges for the next years, and as well to communicate that solutions have to be brought, but not on the cost of nature.
Right. And I mean, Estelle, she mentioned the issue of financing. At the same time, now we're talking about the issue of awareness then, I think. How large do you think that plays a role in driving action? Or do you think it's limited? Or do you
the awareness about that finance is a key?
Yeah.
I think there is no awareness about it.
Yeah.
All those issues we were talking about yesterday and today, for example, Africa, I think we still in Europe have totally the mass, our audience, our public. Yeah. I cannot talk about our politicians, but I think that we don't understand that there are a lot of risk for people who live there, but that there are as well a lot of chances, opportunities for our companies and for just for the whole society. Tackle these crises, both crises, and as well to develop together the countries and be part of this transition.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. In the meantime, I am curious if there are any questions already in the audience. There is somebody there with her hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
If you stand, the people in the back can also see you.
So I actually have two questions, one on finance and one on the REDD Plus initiative.
Yeah.
So on the
what is that? Which initiative?
REDD. So it's, I think, the reduce emissions for deforestation, REDD plus. I don't know the full form of it. I can't recall it. Yes, RED. Yes,
the Red
Plus
oh,
initiative.
Nice,
Okay,
cool.
so on the finance part, I actually wanted to know what the panelists think on what do you envision as the role of blue bonds to assist with reducing debt and enhancing nature-based solutions.
Yeah.
Of course, in Gabon, the recent one that has happened, it's reduced about 4% of debt in the country. But do you think this is optimal enough? And what can we further do to reduce debt, enhance nature-based solutions, which focus on building community resilience, economic development, and social development?
Okay, and the red question?
And the red question is, what do you think were the critical challenges and missed opportunities with the RED initiative, and why it didn't take off to become a success in developing countries?
Okay, the red one, let's start with that. Dean, may I look at you? Because I already also gave people a bit of a, well, I kept them in suspense. You were just about to go into solution, and I was being the strict moderator and being like, no, we really have to continue now, but maybe perhaps some solutions tie into that question. Do they?
Unfortunately, I'm not directly involved in any of the RED consultations that have happened previously. Having said that, it is an example of something that has great potential, but not necessarily then the buy-in and the commitment to the action which is required. And that, I think, is a continuing concern on all of these issues. It's really trying to get the nature-based solutions onto the agenda, and so that there is time and resources committed to these things to actually implement some of these activities. And it needs to be the combination of stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about RED activities. There's a lot of policymakers that are involved in discussing what the processes should be. But we also need the implementers. And the implementers also need the financiers. Mm. And that really comes on to your second question. We're speaking about blue bonds. We're not sort of supporting, if I'm honest, not very much blue, because we think there's too much uncertainty. Even when we talk about green bonds, we're not entirely convinced, because what's your definition of green? It's a bit like hydrogen, blue hydrogen, grey hydrogen,
yeah.
Whatever coloured hydrogen. We feel we should be talking about renewable hydrogen, renewable bonds, because we don't want to have this miscommunication about what does green mean. Nuclear. Is nuclear green or is it not green? If we say renewable finance, then we're very clear. And I think on the question there, for me, the key factor is that we have to motivate private sector finance. I've spent many, many years involved in energy funding, multinationals, bilaterals, and we talk about donors funding these activities, and we do a project here and a project there. It's minuscule, the amount of money that donors from the public sector can commit to these areas, whether that's energy specifically or nature-based. Yeah. Whereas the private sector, if we can have investment, we can convince private sector, we can reduce the risks, use public money to show that there's an opportunity there, then we attract private investment, and that becomes sustainable. Without the private sector, we'll all be talking amongst ourselves.
Okay, yeah.
We do a lot here, I've got to confess.
Yeah, maybe.
It's important.
No, I agree that we need to talk to. I think there were a lot of investors. I think I've seen many sessions where they were as well, but I think it needs to be done more. Irene, I wanted to go to you if you want to tap into that. I saw you listening in. Is this something that you'd like to add to as well? Maybe the element of finance?
Yeah, well, I think in our case, we have a combination of public and private
funding.
Funds. Yeah. And we've been able to join into the equation the private sector. So we have some initiatives with funding. But I wanted to comment that last week was the Latin America and the Caribbean Climate Week, and I was joining some of the events related with nature-based solutions. And it was really interesting, some initiatives by young people. And a group of young people, their funds comes from different churches all over the world. So I think it was different, and they have a very good, interesting projects in some countries in South America.
Okay.
So I think we have to keep an open mind and be creative with the private and public and different kind of funding.
Yeah, I like that. I heard an agreeable nod or sound coming from the left of Mirjana. Do you agree?
Yeah, when Irina speaks, I remember, there are some faith-based organization that supports young people work, and also they're more closer to the nature as well. So they're, because, the church usually, centered, in a forest and others. So I think they're the one who were supporting young peoples, and we need to also engage them as well.
Yeah. Okay. Is there another question from the audience? There's one here at the front. Please, if you'd like to stand as well, that would be great.
Thanks. Really loving this session so far. Kathy from IUC and Climate Crisis Commission as the Deputy Chair. I guess this is really a question for everyone. So would just love your views on how to ensure the safeguards of NBS in either multilateral policy or on-the-ground implementation, and especially to ensure and to guarantee the rights of the civil society actors. Thanks.
The rights of civil society actors as well. Maybe, Anita, I don't know if you want to come in from that perspective, because of course Ed is also, like, I think, a prime example of civil society trying to voice something.
Yes, we started this initiative, Mother Earth, 10 years ago, and we do it in partnership with NGOs. So WWF, Austria is one of our partners, and Greenpeace as well, and I think 7 other Austrian great big organizations who deal with nature preservation, climate change, environmental organizations. And it's important, and in fact, it's an SDG goal, the 17.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I always point out, because I think we all have different roles and different points of view on these issues. I mean, okay, we are a public service media, so we have to be objective, we have to be independent, but we use, for example, those NGOs, our partners, as a sounding board.
Right.
So we can listen to them. What are the most important issues? What is developing at the moment, what are the trade-offs that are made. So I think it's crucial, and I'm really happy that we started it 10 years ago.
I like that. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. I want to do a little check, because there's something I keep on thinking about. Okay, so we've talked about finance a little bit. Maybe we can get a little more into that in a bit. But of course, I started out with you, Dean, because we were wondering about this sort of trade-off between nature being destroyed on the one hand, or we see that there's a risk for deforestation or natural habitat on the one hand, and the fact that we need to accelerate renewables. But I just want to get a bit of a feel here in the room. So everybody that's on their phone, you have about 2 seconds to act like you're listening, because you're going to have to do something in a bit, and you don't want to be the person looking around and being like, what's happening here? I want to do a little check. I wanted to ask from you, I want to do a little game. So we all know that we need to accelerate, right, when it comes to having renewables and implementing it. At the same time, there is the risk of wildlife being affected by it. I'm going to ask you if you think that it is not okay that wildlife will be affected in sort of like the acceleration and pursuit of the degree of renewables where we need to be at. You can stand up, and if you think that if you think no, it's okay if it's a little bit affected because we have a climate emergency and we need to accelerate sort of the race to renewables, remain seated. So know that you're always saying something. Stand up if you think that we can't trade off wildlife habitats being affected for renewables, and remain seated if you think, well, there's a bigger crisis and we need to accelerate. Okay, is your heart breaking, Dean? Because this is, I think the majority of people remain seated. Okay, can we get a microphone maybe? Everybody freeze, by the way, because now I got you. You can't go anywhere. Maybe the lady there with the red shirt and the black blazer, you were quite fast to stand up. Would you like to share why? Yeah, I think it's on.
Well, on one side, the biodiversity and the wildlife has been affected for the past decades.
Yeah.
And we can't, we've already lost 70% of the wildlife. So we can't risk losing anymore. We need an equilibrium in the wildlife and then the biosphere, and risking to lose more, risking more tipping points to be reached cannot be the solution.
Okay, so so you're like, and Dean is applauding for that. There is somebody here that remains seated. Maybe we can get you, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing, by the way. By the way, still remain, remain frozen, people. I remember your faces. I know exactly who was standing up. You were seated, sir.
Yeah, I was seated, but I think it's politer to stand up. And and I'm also from this committee of engineers. And,
great. You're a colleague of Irene.
And we just had also a meeting. And there is a third solution missing here, because you put as an alternative that says always more renewables, or do we need the fossil? I think the most important instrument is missing, namely, while you do 50% renewables, you do 50% fossil, but with carbon capture. And while you combine it with carbon capture, it becomes climate neutral without doing all the other destruction, and you get a stable system. Now I know there is an organized opposition to even talk about carbon capture, because there's a lot of people that want all electricity at any price, and they do not want an alternative. They want monopol on only electricity, and that doesn't work. You combine 50% with 50%, you use both shoulders for the next 30, 40 years, and this alternative was missing, so it was so difficult for me to sit or to stand up, because what
you wanted a third, you thought it was a false dilemma.
There was no choice.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So you would say false dilemma. I also see that, Dean, you leaped a little bit to the edge of your seat, so I'm feeling that there's something brewing there. Would you like to respond to this point that this gentleman made? You may all sit down again. Thank you so much for participating.
No, of course. Thanks very much. And this is a whole debate in its own right. We have another session on carbon capture and storage. But just to say, for those people who remain seated, I have every sympathy. I've had 30 plus years before I came to WWF understanding that renewable energy is the answer. And I didn't see the bigger picture. But in fact, renewable energy is the answer. Our policy is 100% renewable energy.
Right.
But there are good ways to do renewable energy, and there are not so good ways to do renewables. And it's really just a question of understanding that it doesn't cost any more to avoid the conservation areas. And for me, it's this bigger picture appreciation.
Yeah.
But on the carbon capture and storage issue, we think that there's no place for that in the longer term. However, we do recognize there are some highly intense energy industries at the moment. We're thinking about steel or ceramics, some of the chemicals industries. There are no renewable energy solutions at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, CCS may be something that we have to use in this transition period, but we would like to see more investment going into renewable energy innovation rather than into CCS, which we think is going to be a temporary short-term solution. Many problems associated with CCS.
And
that's another discussion we can have afterwards, if that's useful.
Yeah, maybe you guys can afterwards. When you say there are good ways to do it and there are less good ways to do it, not so good bad ways, basically, can you make that very concrete and tangible? Can you give me an example that like vividly shows me what you're referring to when it comes to limiting or even minimizing or even bringing to zero the effect on wildlife with renewables?
No, sure. And please let me be clear on this. When we say renewable energies, there are good ways, and I say not so good deliberately, because renewable energy is the future.
Yeah.
And we must accept that.
Yeah.
But in order to do it in the right way, we just need to be aware of the impact on the natural environment.
Yeah.
There are very clear conservation areas which are demarked across the world.
Yeah.
We're seeing more and more examples of renewable energy companies passing the borders of those areas,
right,
and being involved with those.
So it's just about being mindful, or what should I be thinking about when you say good ways to do it?
Well, that's right. It's also working with governments. Yeah, so we want to have policies, legislation in places which protect those sort of areas.
Yeah.
Siting and planning for renewable energy is critical.
Yeah.
We need to do that together.
Yeah.
It's in all of our interests to take it forward. And there is a lot of space on this planet. We have other assessments done on that, where we can have sufficient renewable energy to meet all energy needs without going into the conservation areas and having detraction on nature and biodiversity.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. That's also a very good point. Irene, if I can go to you, maybe just briefly, 1 year from now, where should we be when it comes to making nature-based solution more the standard in the way in which we approach things?
I think that we need to work together, public and private sector, and we need to engage the local people when we are going to develop initiatives. Local people is very important. And the other thing is that we need to improve the monitoring and also to be able to account the benefits of nature-based solutions so we can make it more financing available.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to work a lot to get more and more nature-based solutions all over the world. But I think those are the main
ones you would say. Okay, thank you also so much. I think those are they also touch upon the essence, I think, of what needs to happen. Jared, I already mentioned it, COP is around the corner. What needs to happen at COP when we're talking about nature-based solutions and young people being involved in processes?
Yeah, thank you. So, I think almost 28, 29 days left towards COP. All delegations are getting prepared and making sure their agendas are on the table. I know the nature-based solution is going to be discussed under the adaptation agenda item in the Glasgow Sharm el-Sheikh discussions. So we need to make sure, the nature-based solution be one of the major agenda on the table, and also countries needs to adapt it to their local context as well.
Yeah.
So most of the time it's kind of also considered as one of the locally led adaptation solutions.
Yeah, and
so
maybe
we can merge,
Maybe if I can just add, because you say the agendas are being drafted right now, so and correct me if I'm wrong, so what you're also saying is if we want to push for nature-based solutions to be more prominent on the agenda, that is not something that you lobby for while you're at COP and you're there and you're thinking, okay, now we're advocating for what I stand for. It's something we do now in the lead up. So start contacting your governments, people, and organizations to put it on their side events, like sessions that will be talking and putting it more prominently. Very briefly, with regards to young people, any specific thing that you would like to see happen?
Of course, with young people, I know they are one of the main drivers for these issues.
Yeah.
There is a Use for Nature-based solutions initiatives. I know they are also really advocating for that one.
Yeah.
Really advocate at the local level with the issue of nature-based solutions.
Right. So
as one of the major climate action.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe we can put that on a list after the report that Dean presented. Also check out Youth for Nature-based Solutions, if I'm not correct. Anita, final question for you. I'm curious, when would you say that we, because this is the second, but also the final day of the International Vienna Climate and Energy Forum. It's a bit sad, right? But that also means that after today, people go back to their everyday lives. When would you say that, leaving here, people will have gotten the message? What needs to happen when everyone goes back to their desks and their everyday lives?
Tell stories.
Tell stories.
We heard a lot of very inspiring talks, a lot of different perspectives, and I think it's that's as well what media can do, to share the different perspectives, because we need a better understanding of all the perspectives on climate change, of nature-based solutions all over the world, because they are totally different. We have totally different starting points and totally different challenges. And I think this is what we should talk about with our stakeholders, our audience, our communities, and then,
Focus on doing that. I like that. That's also something that everyone can do. Literally, not even the day after this forum, they can do it on the train ride back home or however they're going to go back. Thank you so much. Thank you to all four of you. Thank you to Estelle as well. I haven't forgotten you. Can we once more get a big round of applause for our panel, everyone, for sharing all of the insights and for yourselves for being so engaging in this session.